really know what's going on over there other than everybody's dumb.
The instant you step out of line, you say something that they don't like and they don't like you personally, they're going to use all those pre-existing laws and they're going to use it on you.
Woman exposed her male genitalia to women and underage girls. That's what happened.
It's pure propaganda and it's super cringe, by the way. It's super cringe.
Everything is super cringe. Eric Butler, TatumReport.com. How are you, young sir?
Absolutely amazing, and I am loving the new intro. It's amazing.
Thank you. If only we knew who edited it. I have no idea. Let's jump into it, Eric. Compulsory vaccination for everyone likely coming soon in Canada. What a great time to be alive. As reported by my guy, Dakota Christensen from Rebel News. The health minister, so he's top head honcho, stated that while rapid test masking and social distancing are important tools, they won't end this crisis. This crisis that we're obviously not in anymore. Nobody cares. Numbers are way down. Sure, transmissions are way down. They even announced when they put us back in lockdown a couple weeks ago that the hospital stays, people are usually out in the same day as opposed to 3 or 4 days before, because people are so afraid that they're coming to the hospital if they test positive, after, of course, the government sent out, hundreds of thousands of tests home with people. So they're just showing up to the hospital and wasting everybody's time and being sent home. That doesn't matter, though. Forced vaccination will be the only way, Dakota writes, and he's a good writer. He's one of our staff writers. Mandatory vaccination for all vaccines is likely coming for all citizens. See, I'm even calling ourselves vaccines now. We're all human vaccines.
You're actually a human virus. You are just a walking...
That's true.
You're just walking sickness.
Like how hardcore leftists call, fetuses viruses or leeches on the system, whatever you want to call it.
Parasites.
Exactly, right? Let's get our faces on there since we're so handsome. When asked about the possibility of mandatory vaccination, Canadians do close in French. I personally think we'll get there at some point. See, this is the Canadian thing that they do. The Prime Minister does it as well. A lot of the federal politicians, in order to take office, you need to be bilingual in English and French. So whenever they have something very bad to say, they say it in French because they're technically allowed to give an answer in French if they want, even whether they're asked in English or not. And they tend to say the bad things in French because it'll get way less coverage and translated falsely. And they can be like, oh, it's a bad translation, blah, blah, blah. He added, I see it coming personally. Not now. I don't think we are there yet, but I think decisions need to be had about mandatory vaccinations because we have to get rid of it. Personal understanding of what we see international conversation with health ministers. So he's just admitting, Eric, that he's talking to, his fellow globalists and we're just making a plan. We're just trusting the plan, I think, is what he's trying to say.
Trust the plan. Okay, so my first question for you is, what is the split about as far as the language? Are we talking like 50-50? Like most people are bilingual? No. Like most people speak English 70-30? Or if you had to guess? As
a person who is allegedly French, my dad's from Quebec, it's like 90-10 English. Now, Quebec's got it. We can get the actual population of Quebec. I can get that because we're about 37 million in Canada population, which is barely bigger than Australia if you're counting. It's like 27 million there.
I mean, that's like Texas. I don't know what the population of Texas. I shouldn't have said that, but America's a lot larger. I guess it's the
8.6 million is the latest Quebec population I'm reading. So what we've got here is what? Almost a third, a little less than a third, 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, a fifth. Between a fourth and a fifth of people are French. And there's some people in another province, New Brunswick, which are French, and they kind of have the same French as like Louisiana, Acadian. That's where the word, fun historical fact, Eric. Cajun, like the word Cajun for somebody in New Orleans, is actually it's actually a slang for Acadian. So they're a Cajun or a Cajun. Fun fact.
Okay,
so most people in Quebec,
every day.
Yeah, exactly. Most people in Quebec speak English anyways. The rural people, like one of our cameramen that we have up in the northern sector of Quebec, he barely speaks any English. But when he speaks better English than most people would speak French, just because out of necessity, out of the things they're watching. So, to answer your question very long-windedly, they still speak most of them speak English. They want you to try to speak French, and if you if you try, they'll appreciate it. But they'll of course try to speak to you in French first, even when they know you speak English.
Well,
It's a snobby culture.
I was just asking because you said, okay, well, they kind of use the French to like weasel in things that
Right,
are
right.
awful. So, okay, that makes sense. But it's just a little strange, or maybe it's not strange. Maybe it's totally predictable that the more we learn about this, right? This is not March 2020 anymore. This is January 2022. We are going into year 3 of this. First of all, emergencies typically don't last 3 years or 2.5 or whatever you want to say. That's just a fact. It's not an emergency at that point. It's just a way of life. And that's why I kind of compare it to this climate extremism, right? They've been screaming about that since we were both kids, and it hasn't gone away. So it feels like that's just how it's going to be. We're going to have to learn to live with these people telling you that you're going to die every single day. And I got news for them. Yeah, we're all going to die. Okay. It's a sad fact of life. It's going to happen. They want you to think that if you don't do everything that they say right now, then you are going to wake up dead tomorrow. You know what I mean? And why is it that the more we learn, the more the stupider they think we are? So we know that the Omarion is less deadly, but they continue to tell us that, well, the only way out of this, it's almost as it's everything's completely inverted, right? This is really clown town. So even Fauci and Walensky can admit that, and you can watch Fauci, by the way, when he does his word salad thing, like, well, Jake, the data isn't really quite solid on that. And we know that if the data was solid, he would tell you you're all about to die if you don't get the shot. So him saying going on TV constantly once a day and saying these word salad things, as we learn more and sorry, I'm getting off track here, but James O'Keefe just posted something about how he's gonna publish new documents about Fauci that we've never seen, as though it matters. We all know it's fake, right? We can keep, publishing these bombshells, but nothing's going to change until what? I mean, I have a couple ideas of how it might stop, but I don't want to get us banned off YouTube. So the point is, why are these people going into year 3 saying, well, I think mandatory shots are the only way, as if we can't see them? They think we don't have the internet. They think this is 1983 and there's no internet and we can't just look up all the info. How stupid do they think we actually are? And again, just to bring it full circle, and this is the last thing I'll say on this, is maybe this will wake up some more people, but probably not.
I see. You still have hope, young grasshopper.
I've
been watching a lot of. I rewatched all 3 Hobbit movies last week, and I have to tell you that I'm leaning more towards immortality with the elves. There's so many. I have problems with the Hobbit series.
I've never seen any of those, so I can't weigh in on any of that.
Other than the fact that they're just not as good as Lord of the Rings because they just have like one storyline going the whole time. A lot of it just doesn't make sense. Like, this dwarf leader lets so many people get slaughtered before he comes out of his psychosis. He could have saved thousands of lives.
That's Fauci.
Exactly. It's what's his face. It's Cuomo as well. Everybody, every Italian New Yorker, your favorite accent. But you might be asking, Eric Butler, Canada, at what point do you just stop dealing with all this? Canada, at what point do you just say, hey, you know what? We're on boosters now. We're on lockdown number 85. What's the matter for you, huh? If we're Italian. But, last week I made a claim of 2 million people got boosters. I was shut down by a fact check on some sort of website. I was like, this seems out of date to me. It was 200 something thousand. Andrew says was right, and I'll bring it up right now. It's actually 4 million doses as of 2 days ago. Right here, you can see 4 million Ontarians. That's 4 out of 10 million population, and that's people who are not children. So what's that? At least half of people. How many children? I don't know how many there are, but at least half of people, I'm going to safely estimate, probably 60% of people have said, you know what? I got 2 doses already. I'm going to go ahead and get a third one and then get locked down again. And then the schools are closing. And my friend with 2 kids says they announced on Friday that they're going to open the schools on Wednesday, 2 days late for some reason. I don't know why. And then they announced on Monday or a Tuesday that they're pushing it back by another 3 weeks. And he's like, how are we supposed to deal with that? Parents can't change their schedule that quickly. That's insane. Yes, it is insane. but what you gonna do about it? He's one of my best friends, known since I was 6 years old. I told him, you're not gonna do anything about it. You and your other parents could get together with whatever school board. You can say, we're not taking this anymore. No, they're not brave. They're certainly not brave enough to say no mask, but they could say, no, open the schools. The teachers have been home long enough. It's over. Stop this. We can't keep doing this. We have jobs to go to, hopefully, but they're not going to do it. Have they done anything? It's been a week since the announcement was made. No, they're not doing anything. I told them they're not going to do anything. When 60%, give or take, of the province is like, boost me up, Johnny. You think the other parents are going to get together? The time for passing the buck is over. You actually have to do something. So whether it's pulling your kid out of school, sending them to a private school, moving, your options are those, or lay down and take it and stop complaining. Because if you're just screaming into the ether. What's the old meme? Abe Simpson, old man screams at cloud. If you're not going to do anything, then why are you complaining to me? I don't know. You like your kids in mask. You like your they just announced, and I can find this for you if you want, junior and senior kindergarten masking up. We're masking them up in Ontario. That's 4 and 5 and 6 year olds. So you want this child abuse to continue, you go right ahead. I don't have any kids. My siblings aren't going to do that to their kids. My brother has 9 kids. They're all homeschooled. So you can certainly do it if he can do it. My sister just finished telling my brother that she worked in one of these long-term care homes this entire time. She's got a new job. I won't say doing what, but it's not involved in healthcare anymore. But she worked in long-term care homes this entire time. She said it was amazing to her watching her friends, her coworkers, her colleagues turn from regular people into complete retards, frankly, is the word that she used. People who are health professionals all of a sudden just losing their minds and pretending that they don't know like what the reality is. So I'm happy to say that this stuff happened. One of my brothers got caught using a fake vaccine passport.
And how did that turn out? Because I don't want to pry too
one
much
of my
into
brothers, I have 17 of them. No, they let him in anyways. Take that to whoever it is. Take that. He infected the whole place. We're just gonna say,
because that seems like the only crime, at least in New York, that even happens anymore, right? Like you can what is it? Armed robbery is not a felony anymore. You don't have to serve time. There's no consequences for anything unless you decide that you don't want to wear a mask inside of a grocery store, or if you try to go to church. But I'm just genuinely curious as to how people. I mean, what drives this? It's just the pure propaganda, and I hate to constantly harp on it, but it does kind of give me this no shade, but this like light form of trauma or PTSD or something, because I remember that completely empty testing facility. If I recall correctly, I think that's how we actually met when I was like tracking that testing facility.
I believe so. I sent you nudes that same day.
Yeah. Violation. It was empty for months on end. It got to the point where I even started to know what I would call the virus employees, but the people working there, they had state troopers. Everybody's all up in arms right now because Gavin Newsom is deploying state troopers in California to do these shots or these testing facilities or whatever it is. But Cuomo was doing that back in April of 2020 when it was nothing but a whole bunch of, traffic cones and some kids throwing around a football in an empty parking lot. But after, I don't know, a year and a half of pure propaganda, now the lines are around the block in New York. So it is really weird to watch these people go from what was probably a fairly sane, level-headed individual to a complete and absolute moron that can't even tell that. I mean, look, bro, it's one thing here's the bottom line. If the media hadn't been harping on this every single day, every hour, you walk outside your door in New York, there's signs everywhere. You actually go into the apartment building. That was one of the last straws for me, is when I saw them tell me to wear a mask inside my building. I was like, this is never going to happen. Like, they're trying to drive me crazy, and I was gone like a month later. But if you watch this, I mean, this is absolute madness. And again, just to, I guess, bring it full circle, the more we learn about this, the deeper they dig themselves into a hole. So now we know everything is less deadly than it was, and CNN's not using the death ticker anymore. Now we have to tell them that, mandatory shots are really probably going to be the only way out of this. It's like, it's over. It would have been over if you didn't keep talking about it. And we see the exact same thing with racism, right? Like, well, isn't what was the interview that I saw with I think one of the Capitol police officers who was, all buddy buddy with Nancy Pelosi, and he's talking to like George Stephanopoulos or something. I don't know, don't quote me.
Yeah.
But he's like, so that day at the Capitol, all those white supremacists, they were yelling the N-word at you, weren't they? I mean, they yelled some pretty bad slurs
Right,
at
the
you,
guy
didn't
that
they?
testified too, isn't he?
Yeah, it's like, why are you're propping this stuff up when obviously it's clear as day for anybody with an IQ, more than their shoe size, or I don't know, whatever the saying is, but it's so obvious that they are keeping this stuff on life support. And I don't know. They say, oh well, the science is settled, but that's because we got rid of all the scientists who disagreed. I mean, it just keeps going on and on and on. So I can only think of maybe one or two ways that it ends, and both of them will get us banned from here. So I'll refrain.
It was so refreshing to speak to my brother on the phone for 30 minutes and hear him say, this is all like, because I used to disagree with my brother on a lot of stuff politically, but he's saying that he didn't get it, and he's had enough of all this, and he's mocking everything. My brother, who didn't usually pay attention, like he was sort of the type of guy who's like, there's no point to pay attention to politics. I've made up my mind. He's telling me about the Biden clips he sees and all this stuff because he's had enough. My sister's out there not giving a crap. And I talked to John Doyle and Vince Dow last week. We're back from the Christmas break. I just feel so re-energized to be above the narrative. I am the narrative now. Everybody's starting to get it. Who wants to get it? In terms of intellectually. And you can go out into the streets of Toronto and drive. I'm driving to work. You can see people with masks on in their car. I'm laughing at you. You're standing at the bus stop alone. I'm laughing at you. There's no need to even like participate in any of it. There's no need to try to convince these other people. It's at the point now, if you don't get it, you're the stupid person in the room, in the part of the party, wherever you are. You don't really have to explain to people. Now, what did I see? I saw my guy Anomaly on live stream last night saying, and he's coming on my show soon, saying,
oh, was he was with Mark, right? Was he with Mark for NY? Mark Shuskevich?
I don't know. I didn't see that part. He was alone when I saw it. But he was just saying how, like, you don't have to make fun of people. You don't have to, like, you need to inform them. You need to bring them over. That's fine and wonderful. Anomaly, much nicer guy than I am. I say the same thing to Matt Brevner, much nicer guy than I am. You guys have your job. I have my job. My job is to bring this all together in a fancy package of ridicule, and that's what I'm going to continue to do. It's supposed to be fun. We're supposed to be upbeat, and we're supposed to say, hey, if you don't want to participate in reality, if it's taken you 2 years to get to this point where you still don't want to read things, you still don't want to update yourself on what's actually going on, you just want to listen to the fat guy on TV, Doug Ford, who I now know after rewatching The Hobbit resembles the Goblin King, which is basically what he is, a big, fat, greasy thing dictating things without making any sense. If you don't want to bring yourself up to that, then that's fine. It's like it's the equivalent of being like if somebody's living in like the 50s and they're just like, no gay people and women can't work and stuff like that. What's the point of trying to convince this person if they're that
Somebody's
stupid?
Going to clip that for Media Matters. You're going to be on Media Matters.
That's fine. What's the deal with women in the workplace? In that exact voice. What's the point of trying to update this person's thinking when they don't want to save themselves? What's the point of saving a person who wants to, listen to things on cassette decks when, Blu-rays out there? You know what I mean? At some point, people are beyond saving. It's not my job to save them. I'm going to be nice to you the best I can until you start, showcasing these tendencies where you're taking away my freedom. You're contributing to this whole aura, this whole idea that we should be afraid. You're participating in this, actual fascism, and you're doing it gleefully because you think it makes you a good person. At this point, I'm laughing. I'm going in Walmart. My mask is around my chin. I'm laughing. Nobody says anything. I'm laughing. If you want to live in your fear, then go ahead. I'm just going to not participate in it. Eric Butler, TatumReport.com.
Well,
go ahead, and then we'll get to the New York mayor fighting white supremacy.
Oh yeah, okay. So just really quick, I think it's clear that they would not hesitate to ridicule you. We saw that. I mean, especially in the Trump era and the Rona years, of course they're going to ridicule you. So I don't see what the real problem is in throwing it back a little bit. I'm not saying go out there and act crazy and just play right into the the stereotype of what they think somebody who is, I don't know, right wing or conservative or whatever buzzword they want to use. Don't play into that. But it's clear that they would ridicule you, and they actually have made a point to do it. You can run the tape of Maxine Waters or Hillary Clinton. We can't be civil. Get up and make a scene. So that much is clear. So I don't really see the problem with at least standing up to that. You know what I mean? It's like you don't have to start things, but you can certainly finish them, as far as I'm concerned. And lastly, they have no interest in reality. They have zero interest in reality. We see that with the transformer movement, right? And I've said this before, I'll say it once again, that we wouldn't be at this point if a large portion of the population, or at least a vocal minority of the population, hadn't blindly accepted the idea that you can just change from one thing to another, but only one thing to the other. I can't be, a 45-year-old billionaire. I can't identify as Jeff Bezos, right? But I can identify as a woman and then hop on the girls' swim team. So the point I'm trying to make is they have no interest in reality anyways. And I think that the precursor to where we are now is the elimination of reality by way of this this transformer movement. I know it sounds like a far stretch, but I don't think it is, and I don't want to say the wrong things so we don't get kicked off Twitter or YouTube or whatever it is. But hopefully you're picking up what I'm putting down. Anyways, we can move on to Eric Adams.
Yeah, but have you seen this update on the Penn State transgender swimmer?
Yeah, and I had to
I have
read
a
it
meme of it.
Times to.
I have a meme of it on my Getter page. Shout out to the people watching on Getter. And I'll be talking to two people from Getter this week. So stay tuned to that. But this is on my Getter page. I saw the clips from the actual race, the freeze race from that. But Penn's transgender swimmer, which is this bloke right here, lost to Yale's transgender swimmer in a hotly contested women's Ivy League 100 meters. First of all, the fact that it's Ivy League makes it somehow better, because this is otherwise like this is Yale's swim team and Penn State swim team, the Quakers versus the Boilermakers, or whatever Yale's team is. But so that's a woman who's transitioning into a man. So this person's testosterone levels are probably way higher,
through the roof,
than the transgender guy who's becoming a woman, because his are coming down to woman levels and his are going up to male levels, and that's probably why he destroyed he.
Wait. Okay, I'm stupid. Okay, I'm a little retarded. All right, so this lovely handsome young woman on the left with the red shirt, shirt, that is the former male turned woman.
That's the one who competed for 2 years as a male on the men's swim team, took a year off, then came back and then shattered these records
by 38 seconds and started beating people, literally lapping them. Okay, but competing as a woman. And then we have this other handsome young human being who is a woman transitioning into a male, but they are racing both as women. I mean,
correct.
How did they cross paths? If you're transitioning into being a man, then shouldn't you be racing the men?
Well, I guess you can choose, but at this point, I guess she's not a man yet.
Okay, because that's what I
are you expecting this to make sense, Eric Butler?
Well, I'm telling you, when I saw it, I literally read it 3 times. Because look, you're scrolling through Instagram and you're like, oh, whatever, I don't care. Like, you don't even know what you're looking for at a certain point. But that's not the point I'm trying to make here. So I read it and I'm like, okay, I guess that makes sense. But when looking at it just right now, I realized that they should have never crossed paths, if you think about it, because Thomas is competing as a woman. So? Thomas is competing as a woman, and then the Yale swimmer should be competing as a man. So how did they even cross paths?
I thought you told me that this doesn't exist.
Okay, you know what? Let's talk about Eric Adams.
All right, Eric Adams.
The mental gymnastics and the pretzel that my mind is bending into is just enough.
Eric Adams is what? So this is his brother talking about, the mayor of New York City?
No, so I think he's talking about his brother, who he appointed as some sort of police official. So Eric Adams appointed his brother as some sort of his brother is also a retired cop. They're both retired cops. And he hired his
brother. Supposed to appoint your family members to things?
Well, we're talking about New York City Democrats, so they can do whatever they want. They can literally do
fair.
whatever they want. They can literally do whatever they want. So he appointed his brother as some sort of official, I forget the actual title, but he's also the head of security for Eric Adams. And to defend that decision, he literally said that the mayor of New York City is dealing with a lot of white supremacy. Now, just think about that for a second. In New York City, he is claiming that they have a problem with white supremacy. Now, I lived in New York City.
After
I lived
being
in-
voted in.
After being voted in. So the victim narrative just will not stop with these people. It's absolutely insane.
The New York Post and the New York Daily News are reporting that you've appointed your brother, a fellow retired police officer, as a deputy commissioner for the NYPD. Is that true? And if so, doesn't that at least violate the spirit of the law in New York, which says public servants, friends, and family members should not benefit from their positions?
Well, we have something here in the city called Conflict of Interest Board. They do rulings and waivers. It's going through that process now. They will make the determination, and we have a great system here in the city. But let me be clear on this. My brother is qualified for the position. Number one, he will be in charge of my security, which is extremely important to me in a time when we see an increase in white supremacy and hate crimes. I have to take my security in a very serious way.
Okay. Now, I don't have a problem with, I think, hiring a friend or a relative for security. That's basically something you're trusting this person to take care of you. If you don't want to have a qualified security guard, that's on you. So I wouldn't, if I was to hire my brother for security, I mean, it's somebody you trust, right? But what I wouldn't hire my brother for is white supremacy, Eric. Okay.
So there's a couple things wrong with this clip. First of all, Jake Taper, who, right, I think one of his producers was just hauled off for diddling kids or photos or whatever they were doing. So that's the first problem. Second thing is he approaches it very nicely because he is a Democrat. Well, we've heard these reports that you have hired your brother. Is that true? Did you really do that? Now, we all know that had Sliwa or, you know, some Republican or Andrew Giuliani would have won, they would not offer him that, we heard this happened. Would you like to clarify? And then the second thing is Eric Adams says, oh, well, in New York City, we have this conflict of interest board. Okay, so everything is completely corrupt all the way to the core in New York. So if you want to say that, the conflict of interest board, I mean, that's him saying, Democrats are going to investigate some Democrats, and I'm sure they are going to find out all the things that are wrong. Same thing with Cuomo, right? Like they got rid of Cuomo. They said it was sexual harassment. It obviously wasn't sexual harassment. It was because he made a whole bunch of the other Democrats look bad with his nursing home policy. But more so than that, I truly think they got rid of Cuomo because he at one point said, if you got the shot, you are protected and you don't have to worry about other people who didn't get the shot. And that just made too much sense. So they had to get rid of him. So him saying that this conflict of interest board is going to somehow straighten it all out is absolute nonsense. And then he says, let me be clear. And that is political, Democrat doublespeak for I am about to muddy the waters completely and not answer the question at all. Let me be clear. And then it doesn't even matter what he says after that. Like Kamala Harris does this big time. Like, let me be clear. The cost of the costs are rising, and that's something that we're going to deal with. And you didn't actually say anything. And then last but not least, you just won the mayor's office. Apparently, legitimately. I'm not going to sit here and say that there's any fraud or anything going on there. There's a much deeper, let's say, root cause, as they like to say, as to why people would actually continue to vote for these Democrats and this weird brainwashing and stuff. That aside, you just won the mayor's office, and now you're claiming that New York City, of all places, one of the most left-wing, radical, anti-racist, woke places on the planet, is dealing with white supremacy. The same place that just painted Black Lives Matter across the entire streets in all 5 boroughs, one right in front of Trump Tower to spite Donald Trump. That's the same place that is now dealing with white supremacy after you were rightly elected mayor. It just doesn't add up at all. And anybody who watches this has to, I mean, how oblivious can you be? But of course, these are the same people who are still wearing a mask and listening to Tony Fauci and only taking left turns and walking into the doorways backwards and doing all sorts of stupid things that these people, that anybody on TV tells them to do. And I think also Jake Tapper should be gone. All CNN just they need to, CNN and New York. All right, I'm just gonna say it. CNN and New York as a whole needs to just all be thrown in the bin, start over from scratch. Just you know what? Just let Antifa out on them, burn it down to the ground, and start over from scratch because it's a lost cause at this point. And LA is probably the same, but that's a different story.
It's really weird that you have New York City, a place with a lot of black people. I'd imagine not a lot of white on other race hate crime. We know there's a lot of hate crime on Hasidic Jews and more on Asians, it seems like. I don't know the exact data, but most data across North America is usually Jews for the highest hate crimes against them. And it shows on video how much Asians get attacked in New York City. There was like obviously that big bump in it. I feel like it was last summer, but a place with tons of black people, tons of rich, successful, and famous black people. Of course, you got to walk to Brooklyn for your cheesecake, Eric. And you've elected a black mayor, and he's facing white supremacy. Now, I don't know if it's behind the scenes, the institutions that are set up there, if they don't like a black guy being mayor. If that's the case, then pinpoint it. But logic and history tells me from the Democrat side, it's much easier to just say things than actually have to prove it. And I'm not going to believe it unless you actually are proving it to me. It'd be like people just saying, there's all this stuff in Hollywood that happens, but nobody ever pointed out the Weinsteins or or Bill Cosby and stuff. Like it'd still be like sort of like a mystery. And maybe there's people in New York City that know about it and don't speak up about it, but I highly doubt it. I highly doubt that it's anything to do with other than him being a Democrat, because he's come out and done very Democrat things. You saw him go do that walk across the overpass and see crime happening, and like obviously no cops came to the aid. The subway, like these are not products of white supremacy. These are products of Bill de Blasio being like the worst mayor in our lifetime. I wasn't around for. Who was it before Dinkins? I don't know. Do you know?
I don't know who was before Dinkins, but I know Bloomberg was before de Blasio.
And Giuliani.
And Giuliani was before Bloomberg. Yeah.
And Batman and Superman were in there somewhere, I guess.
And Dinkins was before Giuliani.
Right.
But
on
this
Seinfeld, they mentioned that.
yeah, this is it's just insane. Eric Adams knows that he can say that because people like Jake Tapper, whatever, on CNN aren't going to do anything. That's his cover. That's the whole point, is that he can go there and say that, and then people will just believe it without thinking about it for even a split second. They'll just say, oh, yeah, everything's racist. Meanwhile, they all live in New York, and they march for black. Dude, in Williamsburg, where I used to work, I used to call it Antifa-stan. Now, a friend of mine called it Black Lives Matterville. I called it Antifa-stan. But the point is, they are so far, they don't realize what's actually happening. It's complete, I hate to use the term brainwashing over and over again, but I can't think of a better term for it. They're marching down there once a week, and then there's a pipeline that they're protesting. There's always something that they're protesting, and then they just go back into their $4,500 a month apartments and work for Google or something. It just doesn't add up. And people like Eric Adams, and same thing with even Andrew Yang, when he was running for mayor of New York after he failed as a presidential candidate, he just said, oh yeah, it's racist against me too. And I guess I would give him a little bit more of a pass, because there were the wave of Asian hate crimes. And it's also very strange at how we have literally gotten to the point. I was looking at some article about some thugs who robbed a guy on a subway platform or something. I think it was also from the Coronavirus NY Instagram account. But it was very funny because they say the suspects are 3 guys in their mid-20s. I'm like, is there anything else you want to mention about them? Is there any other identifiers that you might be able to say that could help you catch these guys? And they know exactly what it is, but they won't say it, because no matter what happens, a black person can do no wrong. I might just go rob a bank after this show, because nothing will happen.
San Francisco, let's just as long as it's under $950, they won't come after you. I think we have some more COVID hilarity on the ticket. My guy Louis Brackpool, Rebel News UK, verified. There was some weird day where they verified a bunch of Rebel News people, and it seemed like a big mistake. Did
you get one?
No, No, the guy who wrote the other article, Dakota, says the internet hates me. I can't be verified on anything.
You got verified on Getter, no?
That's because I got in. I started talking to them like from ground zero. Essentially, it wasn't. Let's just say it was an artificial verification. But Lewis has one. Drea has one. I think Adam has one. So a bunch of people that are like newer have them, and I'm stuck out here. I'm not sure if there's like our writer Dakota with less than 1,000 has them. I sound salty because I am, but it is what it is. Sajid Javid, the UK Health Secretary, gets schooled on antibody protection and their policy to fire unvaccinated NHS staff members, which is the National Health Services. So we have this DL'd for you, and let's take a look. And I'm pretty sure it's the health minister talking to a nurse, and he gets like a little bit wrecked on antibodies and natural immunity.
So the new rule to require vaccination of all NHS staff.
I'm not happy about that. So
You're not happy about it, tell me.
So I've had COVID at some point.
Yeah.
I've got antibodies.
Yeah.
I've been working on COVID ITU since the beginning. I have not had a vaccination. I do not want to have a vaccination. The vaccine's reducing transmission only for about 8 weeks with Delta. With Omicron it's probably less. And for that I would be dismissed if I don't have a vaccine. The science isn't strong enough.
That's your views. And your views? Do you have any view on that? I respect that, but there's also many places
I agree with
different views.
Yep, other views.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and there's another colleague who's also in the same position.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand that. And obviously we have to weigh all that up for both health and social care. And there will always be a debate about it. But
maybe there's an opportunity to reconsider with Omicron and the changing picture, or at least to nuance it and allow doctors who've had antibody exposure, who've got antibodies, who haven't had the vaccination, to not have it, because the protection I've got from transmission is probably equivalent to someone who's vaccinated.
Yeah, but at some point that will wane as well.
But if you want to provide protection with a booster, you'd have to inject everybody every month. If it's worn off by 2 months, if the protection's worn off for transmission after 2 months, then after a month you've still got a bit of protection. So if you want to maintain protection, you're going to need to boost all staff members every single month, which you're not going to do.
We take advice on how much you may need,
but it's not going to achieve a practical benefit.
Well, we take the very best advice that we can.
From
the people that are vaccine experts.
The vaccine experts. You're in charge of health for the entire United Kingdom, some 100 million people, and you've never even had this conversation before, and we know that you don't have any actual answers. His only thing was like, well, your natural immunity wanes. It's stronger than vaccine immunity, and the vaccine immunity also wanes, probably in a shorter amount of time, as this guy stating it's 8 weeks if we trust him. We know that natural immunity from getting it lasts longer. And it's also, if we can go back to the original Israeli study that everybody cites, at least 6 to 13 times, I believe it is, stronger. So this guy's never had this conversation before, or else he'd have some sort of rebuttal for that. He's never been in a position where he has to face a countering, argument, which is the exact problem with every politician these days. They're so sheltered and of a privileged class, Eric Butler of TatumReport.com, they don't have to actually face anybody he's like, oh, this is one opinion. And then he turns to the other people who are probably too afraid to say anything, but probably agree with this guy. Like, oh, any other opinions? No, back to this guy, I guess, because he wants to keep talking, and he has nothing to say. What's your reaction to that?
Well, first, I thought it was funny that Lewis, right? He says he's surprised that Sky News posted that, which I was under the impression that at least Sky News in Australia was actually pretty based, right? That's just the first thing. Doesn't really have anything to do with the argument, because those guys from Sky News Australia have been, roasting Joe Biden. And then secondly, the mask theater. I mean, I get it. You guys are in a hospital, But it's just like they drag this on and on and on. And now we've all been told now that the old mask you were using, the little blue pieces of paper, are not good enough. Now you have to get one that no air seeps into the side, right? So just make sure when you put that mask on, you can't breathe. It's actually demonic. They are literally trying to take people's breath away and not thinking twice about it. Yeah, the old paper mask, we know that those didn't really work. That was fake from the beginning, but we just wanted to scare you. So now you need to get one that's going to completely seal off your breathing. So that way you only get a couple breaths before you have to mess with it or pull it down or pull it up or whatever it is. It's absolutely disgusting. They're pretending that it's all about the science, which I think it's clear that it's not. But we're not allowed to say that because we are not scientists. We are just lowly conspiracy theorists. And when he says, that's your view. Okay, so what is this? The time it takes.
This is a chart from New York Post about how effective these masks are. So surgical mask, if the person infected is wearing a surgical mask and the person who is infected is wearing nothing, you get an extra 15 minutes. What, as opposed to if both of you were wearing nothing, an infected person and a non-infected person, you have 15 minutes before you can catch it. A cloth mask, you have 20. And a surgical mask, you have 30. Obviously, N95s are real masks. They'll stop things for upwards of a few hours if the person's infected. But your surgical mask versus nothing is giving you an extra 15 minutes as you walk around Walmart. So basically, after you've made it from the deodorant aisle to then hardware, you're screwed.
So here's my question though. As somebody who, back in my younger years, I used to dabble in spray paint, right? I know I'm very good with a spray paint can.
Edgy.
You could wear any of those masks. The point is, you could wear any of those masks and you're still going to smell the spray paint. You could wear any of those masks and go mow the lawn and you're still going to smell it. So I don't really need to be a scientist to let you know that this is all political theater. And when he says, oh, well, that's your opinion. Okay, so is that him basically admitting that he just has a different opinion, right? I mean, he's playing it off as though he's the number one undisputed scientist in the whole world. But if he can look at that doctor and say, well, that's just one opinion, then what does that make what he's saying? Is that not an opinion as well?
Yes, but he is of the upper class, Eric.
And then he says, well, the efficacy of the vaccines will wane. Okay. So the effectiveness will wane. So we don't know really how long it lasts. It could be 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 12 weeks or whatever it is. So you don't know that, but you can also assume that there's no side effects. I mean, you don't even know how long it lasts. So how could you possibly know if there's any more side effects that might show up, a year later, 2 years later? Because we have been told also that there's this thing and Cuomo used to push this a lot. Andrew Cuomo, maybe Fredo too, but he used to push this. Well, there's this possibility of long COVID. So we don't know what the long-term effects are. So they're literally telling you that they don't know how long the shot will work, that there may be long-term effects of you getting COVID, but there is no possible way that there is a long-term effect of you getting the shot. It's just impossible. I'm not saying there is. I don't know. I don't care. Actually, I do care. And that's a small sliver of the reason why I'm not going to get it ever. That'll be the hill. But they want to pretend that they know all of the long-term things that they want you to know, but anything that they don't know, they'll just say, well, it's completely impossible. And then lastly, from this clip, the level-headed doctor guy there on the right says, well, you're not going to boost somebody every month. And I'm sitting here like, are you kidding? They would love nothing more than to boost somebody every single month until they die. I mean, that's really the goal. And that's what I've been saying for a long time. Sadly, it was a joke, a year ago, but now it's very true. If there was no pushback, zero pushback, do you think that they wouldn't try to give people the shot every single month? Are you kidding me? That's literally the goal. So he's giving the level-headed guy, I think, is giving the crazy doctor a little bit too much credit and saying, you're not going to do that, because that's absolutely what they want to do. And also, I know I've learned recently that we should shout out the chat. Looks like the chat is getting a little live, so shout out to all the people watching and commenting.
Yeah, I wanted to possibly mention some Getter chats since people are on there and it's freer than the other platforms. Dylan Real, I hope I'm saying that right. He says the Associated Press says brainwashing doesn't exist. Esther Mermaid says Acadians, they were treated horribly after coming to what is now Canada. Louisiana sauce is great. I trust that if I was to go to Louisiana, I would enjoy the food there. Eric, I don't know if you've been there before, but I think I would like it. I don't know what happened here. Okay, there I
Yes,
am again.
the food actually in New Orleans, Louisiana was delicious. That was actually the best part of my little trip to Louisiana, I will say, because the rest of it was actually fairly depressing. It was almost like it wasn't as bad as San Francisco, but the food was top notch. So shout out to them for that. There was some
All right.
nasty bits though. Sorry.
Before before we get to this insane January 6th vigil, I think we had a super chat that we can go to from before. Alex says, for 2 Canadian didgeridoos, what's the funniest part of the Great Reset? The funniest part of the Great Reset, Alex, is the fact that they say everything is crumbling, the economy is going down, people are losing their jobs, they're losing their savings, they're losing their faith in the system, and the solution is climate change policy and carbon taxing. It says it right in there. It says it in Klaus Schwab's article. It says it in their Great Reset stuff. The solution to get out of this is to completely change how we treat the climate with carbon taxes and fuel taxes. So people are poor. The economy is at an all-time low. Yes. How do we get out of it? Fuel tax that is going to get you at the pump. And when you're heating your home and doing everything else, you're going to get a carbon tax, which of course is also going to be compounded when they pass it on to you by the corporations having to be taxed at a higher, rate than before. What happened in Canada the last time they did a carbon tax? It made 0 cents. It's still there. The Conservative Party, who's so very conservative, so much conserving, they want a carbon levy, which is actually, instead of them taking the money directly from you to the government, they put it into an account and let you spend it on things that the government approves of. You can get a little bicycle if you want, if it's your carbon levy money. So it doesn't make any sense. And what they did last time is, you're a business, you can't afford to upgrade your equipment to adhere to our new carbon pricing. So why don't you spend the money on your carbon stuff, a new fridge, a new freezer, that sort of stuff. If you don't get there, we'll give you the money. But if you do get there, we're going to take the money from you anyways. So you get to the marker where you can say, hey, I'm following your guidelines. And then they're like, okay, we're going to tax you. And if you don't get there, they're going to say, okay, we're going to give you the money to get there so that we can tax you. It doesn't make any sense. And this is the world that we live in. Eric, do you want to give your opinion on this?
Yeah, just really quick. The funniest part is that people were pretending that it wasn't even real when there was literally a book written about it. They're telling you exactly what they're doing, but you could turn on CNN or MSNBC and they would just call it a right-wing conspiracy or, whatever, any sort of buzzword that the mainstream media uses to, disqualify or belittle anybody who's actually thinking critically about this. So the point is that they literally told you, Klaus Schwab or whatever, the World Economic Forum, wrote a book about it, and we were still told that it's not real, but it's actually happening before our eyes. And maybe that's not funny at all. Maybe that's really sad, but is what it is.
It really is what it is, Eric. So January 6th, of course, it's like they said themselves, it's 9/11, it's Pearl Harbor. It's insane. And I think, Eric, that we got it wrong and that the Democrats are actually the most patriotic people in the country. They love America. And this video here just proves it. Let's watch.
God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
So, of course, Eric, they're outside wearing their masks, and the vigil is not for the woman. I guess I'll cut back here. The vigil is not for the woman who was shot by Capitol Police. That's its own story. Let's not even get into that today, whether you think that's right or wrong. But it's for what? The police? Is it for the police that let them in? Is it for the police that got into fist fights with the rioters? Is it for the groups led by federal authorities? The 3%ers, Proud Boys, and the Oath Keepers, all
Fed
led by
Boys.
feds,
Yeah.
all feds. Who is it for? And then secondarily, since when are the Democrats they're trying to play up this whole patriotic thing? Like, we are 5 years down the vortex of America's a terrible place and it's racist, no borders, no wall, no USA at all. We're 5 years, maybe 6 now into that, and all of a sudden, oh, America, God bless America, I all of a sudden care. Like,
Yeah.
what is going on here?
Well, it's
And then we got this article. You told me that they had the cast of Hamilton there.
yeah. It's all okay. You know exactly what it's for. Look, so obviously they don't care about law enforcement. They don't really care about America. This is just their clear political game. So this way, the more that this looks like an insurrection and a violent insurrection at that, they can get rid of Donald Trump because clearly he is still a threat to them. Now, I think there's a lot of people on the right who are angry with Donald Trump, of course, because of the farm mafia juice and all that stuff. They still don't. They're angry at him now, but this is a way for them to make this all about the insurrection so that they can build it up to be as awful as humanly possible, blame it on Donald Trump, and then find some obscure law or some obscure rule in the Constitution and say that he can't run, which again is kind of funny because they don't care about the Constitution any other time until it works in their favor. So it's
But
just
wait a minute. So they've got this guy from the musical Hamilton, not there to sing or anything, not there to do anything other than appear on camera. And the significance is what? They're in a play about a historically significant period of time, and that's supposed to be special. That's like saying, like, on Christmas, let's get the guy who played Jesus in the Passion of the Christ to speak via webcam, and this is supposed to be meaningful.
Well, because
somehow?
the virus is still very scary. So we can't have people in person, especially not indoors, because that's too dangerous. So we're going to get
Well,
these
what
people. Dude.
But what does that have to do with anything? Like, what do them speaking have to do with anything?
Well, why is Eric Adams facing white supremacy? None of it makes any sense. They just link these random things together and try to trick you into believing their weirdo policies actually work. None of it makes any sense.
It looks like they sing on camera.
And you know what this reminds me of?
My God.
It reminds me of, remember when the San Francisco Gay Men's Choir was singing that they were going to indoctrinate the children? Yeah. And then so they literally wrote a song about indoctrinating children and then said, that was satire. We're so funny. It's like, dude, you guys are super creepy. And it was only a couple months later, maybe a year later, when they enforce a rule, or they create a rule that now you can't have gender specific toys at big toy stores, and toothbrushes can't be gender specific. So it's quite obvious that their indoctrination attempts are 100% real. You see teachers, that other teacher in I don't know, it was in California. I think it was actually in the Bay Area, in Northern California. Don't quote me on that, but the article is out there. And she was caught monitoring the kids' online usage so that she could indoctrinate them into the LGBT club on campus. And then she got she got put on administrative leave or unpaid leave or something after she got caught doing that, and then said, oh, well, it was said in jest. So every time they do this, they just say it was a joke, even though the jokes are completely not funny. And anything else that even a left-wing person like Dave Chappelle, if he makes a joke, those aren't funny, those aren't accepted. But when we're joking about indoctrinating your kids, that's totally okay. Like, ha ha ha, very funny. Now, I don't have kids, so I'm not super worried about it, but it's creepy to say the very least, bro.
Well, this might explain what's going on here. Somebody put this out the other night. Misinformed is the guy who tweets out all the Rogan clips, like he did from the guy who got banned from Twitter, the doctor.
Yeah.
Go Rogan Experience, 11 million views per show. I don't know what the timeline is on that, because I'm sure you could go back and find a lot. But if it's from Nielsen and Spotify, it's going to be quarter 3. I should have read the whole thing. Q3 media ratings 11 million per show, so that would be whenever Q3 is. Tucker Carlson, Hannity, and what they cut off here was
the lefties.
MSNB. There was one more, I think, below here. Greg
Ingram,
Gutfeld,
I think it
maybe.
might be Ingram.
Oh,
or-
yeah, Laura Ingram, you're right.
Yeah.
And then it went to Rachel Maddow, and then all of CNN, and then the rest of MSNBC, because they can't get a goddamn thing to be shown to their people. It's sad. It's very sad. You can look at so many other places. Just by virtue of being on TV, do they get these ratings? You look at John Doyle's videos. I mentioned him again because I just interviewed him last week. 300 something thousand subscribers. Each one of his videos he puts out gets a couple 100,000 views. That's better than like most of CNN. And he's not on, airports, treadmills, and wherever across the world. And then you look
and
at
he's
other
not posting
people,
every
Tim
single
Pool.
day. Like he's
Exactly.
not like Tim Pool posts multiple videos every single day.
Yeah,
John
and they
Doyle,
all get a 250,000 views.
But John Doyle is like he shows up whenever he wants to. He might go do some research and then make an hour-long video, and people are gonna love it. He doesn't have to be on the hamster wheel every single day making a video and trying to beat people into submission, because the ideas, for the most part, make sense. I don't know everything that John Doyle says, but from what I've seen, he seems like a pretty level-headed dude. And I just wanted to ask you really quick, Doyle and Vince Dow, were they debating? Do they not see eye to eye on something, or are they basically saying the same thing? I'm just curious.
They were mostly saying the same thing, but there were disagreements on like, should Trump come back? And there were some disagreements on I think another thing, but mainly what we talked about is like sort of the boomer delusion and the idea that we should keep trusting conservative parties and that sort of stuff. And then because I knew they were going to agree on a lot of stuff, they didn't both agree completely on some current Trump stuff. But we talked about Elad versus Kyle Rittenhouse, and as we know, or we may not know, that John and some of the other people on Blaze have hung out with Kyle Rittenhouse. So I asked him about that. And then I asked him about the Jack Murphy stuff, since John's there with Sydney and Elijah all the time. So John was a little bit more politer because he's there, but Vince was much more harsh to this Jack Murphy guy. So it was interesting. John said I was asking for brother wars to get them to disagree. So, you gotta. I have a problem, whereas I'm not afraid to. The word maybe not afraid. I'm not shy, and I don't care about maintaining positive relationships with everyone. There's like people that I trust and that I'm loyal to. Otherwise, I'm throwing my premier under the bus. I'm throwing every local politician under the bus weekly, because if you're going to be a fake person, then I'm not going to respect you. I understand the merit, but my point is that we did have a good time, and there was some disagreement, and also it's good to get John's inside information that he can give about Kyle Rittenhouse. He says, trust the Kyle Rittenhouse plan. We can bring it up here. That's the name of the episode. Trust the Kyle Rittenhouse plan on Andrew Says with John Doyle and Vince Dow. Now, free version comes out today. It might already be out. Point is, extra segment at the end. And we talked about Twitter and Getter. And the reason why we talked about that is because Elijah Schaefer is having problems with them. And a whole bunch of other stuff's going on. And I'm going to be interviewing 2 people from Getter next week. And, we'll see what happens there. I don't want to, they're so nice to me. I don't and I'd like to say that some of them are my friends, but I feel like I need to ask them some of this stuff. So I'm going to do my best to work it in there. And, I see the chat now. Somebody's saying he's going to have to get killed in order to get the vaccine. I don't know about you, Eric, but that's my friend, writer Dave from Rebel News. That's his stance. He's like, I'll get the vaccine when they come to my doorstep and put a gun to my head.
Yeah, well, it's going to be one of us. Somebody's going to have to go. That's the hill, right? I mean, I don't know.
I guess it is.
I can't say if it's me or if it's them, but somebody's going to have to go. Yeah, there it is. That's a great book there.
There it is, Barnes & Noble. We don't have that in Canada. If you want it on Amazon, that's how I got it. It will ship to Canada that way. This January 6th stuff, Eric, it's just Charlottesville 2.0. You've got one death. This time they don't even want to talk about the death. And, it's the greatest travesty to ever happen since Pearl Harbor, you guys.
Yeah.
New York, Gotham City, 2020. Gotham Unglued. Tatum Report, do we want to shout it out? What's going on there? Do we want to talk
Yeah,
about
it's pass. We'll talk about it next week.
pass?
I do want to say just really
Yes,
quick
go ahead.
though. Just really quick. I don't know if you actually read the article by Jack Murphy, but it's creepy. All right. And it does beg a lot of questions. I didn't know too much about the guy, but it seems a little bit strange that he's playing himself up to be. And I guess this is what everybody's saying. It's news to me because I didn't know much about his personality before he blew up on Sydney. But he has this group that he's charging guys to be in, and it's completely opposite of what the story was. And in the grand scheme, the story just
Yeah, it's like a gay group, isn't it?
well,
don't worry. Far worse was said on my show, by the way.
I just think
dildos and whatnot are his videos and such.
He's a complete phony, and for somebody who is a grown man, 5 years just isn't long enough to be like, I've changed. It's like, bro, you were 40 at that point.
Yeah, that's what I said. It's like all of a sudden you're completely changed. How fuck you, Sydney Watson, for bringing that up. That was when I was 41. I'm 45 now, and like, because the way he was talking about it was like at least a decade ago, or like
that was 2016. It was 2016.
I think it was
this. Well, I don't know.
I think it was 2018 or 2017.
Okay, well,
regardless,
it was the Trump era. It was the Trump era. It wasn't that long ago. So that's old news. We don't have to talk about it. I just thought it was really weird that this guy is. Whatever.
And it's like I equate it to like dating advice guys, like pickup artists, basically that. Like they're always losers. If you have to go to a pickup artist or a guy to tell you how to be masculine, it's a scam. It's not going to help you. Just use common sense, basically. And you ever seen the last thing before we go? You ever seen the documentary called Shy Boys? It's like 25 minutes long. It's on YouTube. You should watch it. It's about like incels before that was considered like murder, essentially, before people wanted to characterize that. And it's literally about, it's just got some of the funniest characters ever, and like they're pickup artists and they have their nicknames, and it's great. It's called Shy Boys. I highly recommend it.
Wait, is it old? Like how long ago? It was before incels. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was like 2010 or something like that.
Okay, all right.
So it's a good, like, quick watch to really get you confused and strapped into the world. Eric Butler, TatumReport.com.
Yes,
Andrew
and we'll be back.
News.
We will be back. We didn't shout out any articles this week. We're in. It's a bumpy road for the TatumReport.com right now, but we will be back and better than ever. I promise.
Shout out to the viewers on Getter and Twitter. We're growing a lot every single week. I see a lot of people tuning in from the channel these days. Maybe it's time my channel gets revived like it was 2017. Maybe I start doing videos about things. Who knows? Don't really have time for that, but we'll see. I did a thing this week about the CBC in Canada put out a preview for one of their shows to battle against this white supremacist group called The Base, they're called. And then the clip they used as like an example of one of their undercover phone calls was actually a clip from a 2008 web series called Pure Ponage, where a guy's like obsessed with Counter-Strike. Oh my! And this was an example of the white supremacist group, which, by the way, if you go on their Wikipedia, says the leader used to work for the FBI and the Pentagon. Nothing suspicious about that, as they all do. Eric Butler. Thanks for watching, everybody. New graphics, new outro. Goodbye.
Turn it up, Jordan.